In preparing for battle, I have always found that plans are useless, but planning is indispensable. That's a quote from Eisenhower. It sounds contradictory, but the idea is that you need to be able to adapt to the unexpected. The unexpected happened towards the end of the previous video. While making part 1 of the Hedging series, it seemed like a good idea to throw in some Xcode footage. That could be considered when development work officially started on the project. Except I couldn't even get past the first prompt without trouble. There were 4 choices for game technology: RealityKit, SceneKit, SpriteKit, and Metal. Which one is right for this project, as it is a hybrid game, traditional and augmented reality? So I did some research, and I found that people were expressing disappointment with Apple's support of SceneKit and SpriteKit. That reminded me of my frustration while making notification center widgets for the Widgets app. If creating a widget with SwiftUI was unusually difficult, then Apple technology might be wrong for hedging. Actually, Xcode was not the first programming attempt with this project. Initially, this was to be a 2D game created in Hype. However, an issue with the physics engine caused development to stall. I remembered all my failed game projects and wondered, why bother? What's different this time? It's so easy to lose motivation with projects like this. Yet, it is a harsh reality to face. What is different this time? Well, Photics TV is new. Even if hedging completely crashes and burns, it's a journey we can share together. The goal of this channel is to create entertaining and educational content. If you're a game developer, there may be information here that you may find useful. If you're a player, these behind-the-scenes videos could help you to form an appreciation of the game. Or these stories could simply be fun to watch. And since these videos exist, it forces development to move forward and to not give up. A lot of YouTube channels survive financially by having products to sell. Since many of the subscribers to this channel like Crossy Road, I think hedging could be appealing. This leads to another reason why Swift and Apple technology might not be the best decision for this game. Just look at these stats. Many of you are using Android. So perhaps Apple exclusivity is limiting. But also, the Nintendo Switch has a web browser? What? I had to check with a friend to confirm that. Apparently, there is a hidden web browser for the Nintendo Switch. I probably should test that to see if it's any good. Anyway, the point is that this community expands beyond Apple. So, shouldn't Photics software do the same? Well, this game is still being aimed at Apple Arcade. I like the friendly atmosphere of Apple Arcade, but it is nice to have options. That's when I started thinking about the big 3 game development apps: Unity, Unreal Engine, and this one. Right away, there's a pronunciation problem. How do you pronounce it?
Godot.
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 That name is associated with a French play.
Godot.
About 2 guys waiting for someone that never shows. That's how I felt about game engines, always waiting for that perfect game development tool, one that would truly make it easy to make advanced video games. Is this just more of the same, or am I just spinning the tires in the snow, stuck in place and running out of fuel? That's why I'm reluctant to start again with yet another game engine. However, I do like Godot. I'm choosing it instead of Unity and Unreal Engine. Actually, there was a bit of controversy with Unity recently. As a result, Godot surged in popularity. But even after picking Godot, and the reasons why is the topic for another video, there was another tough choice. Should I use Godot 3.5 or Godot 4.0? It always feels like constant problems with software development, as if the wind is always pushing against you, no matter which direction you turn. So, do I pick the alpha version, enjoy new features, and skip potential upgrade issues, or do I go for the standard version, opting for stability? Since the beta is near, I pick the alpha version of the software. It's living dangerously, but apparently version 4.0 has great improvements. But the real question is this: can I actually make a game with Godot? So I'm going to start with the most basic of ideas of the game. Can I create hedges? After downloading and running Godot, immediately I could see cause for regret with my decision. A pop-up window said, "You currently don't have any projects. Would you like to explore official example projects in the asset library?" That sounded nice. So I clicked Open Asset Library, to which it said, "No results compatible with Godot 4.0. Off to a great start. Actually, that's probably the biggest hurdle with Godot, getting started. The main reason is that it involves programming. Not just any programming, but with GDScript, Godot's own programming language. But before I could even get to coding, a new project had to be saved somewhere. Unfortunately, I couldn't put the project where I wanted, not at first. I'd select desktop folder, but then I couldn't navigate any further. What happened? Was this an issue with Godot? Was it a new problem with 4.0? I was even getting ready to make a bug report on GitHub. But in this early stage, it's tough to distinguish the source of the problem. In this case, it's a macOS thing. It needs permission to access the desktop folder. I turned that on and I could get ready to work. Well, there was one more tough decision to make: Vulkan clustered versus Vulkan mobile. Which setting was the right one for hedging? But after reading the differences, there seems to be only one choice. This is to be a mobile game, so Vulkan mobile looks like the way to go. Boom! There's the 3D environment. Pretty snazzy. Except, how do I actually do things? I hit the play button to see what would happen, and it said, "No main scene has ever been defined." So, it looks like the next logical move is to press the 3D scene button. This part is still confusing to me, but apparently it's a tree-like organization method. Here, I'm starting from the main 3D node, and on that node, I can attach a script. I fumbled around a bit, still getting used to the file system, but eventually I created a main script. This is actually making progress. I now can write code. What should I write though? I decided to go with the simple Hello World experiment. There are two functions here, ready and process. Since I don't want this to print every frame, I'm going to add the message to the ready function. Now to test the experiment. Hi! It looks like the experiment was successful. The application launched and a message was printed to the log. Very nice. Now what? Well, 3 things are needed next. The ability to get the location of a click in a 3D space. The ability to spawn a 3D actor based on that location, and a 3D actor. I think I'll start with that last one first. I'm just going to make a generic bush. The final graphic style hasn't been decided yet. For now, just something close is good enough, which means heading back to Goxel to create a voxel style bush. This has been the most relaxing part of the project so far. Like something that Bob Ross would make, if he can only paint with cubes. Anyway, now there's another big question. What's the correct export format of 3D assets for Godot? So, I read the instructions. It seems that the Graphics Language Transmission Format, GLTF, is the recommended format. Nice! So, can that hedge be added to Godot? Well, a quick drag and drop worked. I was able to drag the GLTF file into the file system and then drag that into the scene. Placement was a little wonky, as the tree was floating in the air. But by changing the X, Y, and Z locations, the tree was aligned to the very center of the scene. Amazing. That was so much easier than the last video. I'm somewhat amazed that it worked so well. To jumpstart this project, I watched the Godot 101 Intro to 3D Part 2 Importing 3D Models video from the KidsCanCode channel. Wow, really good tutorial. I almost skipped it because of the channel name. I'm not a kid. Is this video really for me? It is a good video. It solved a lot of the trouble of getting started. It showed how to add a 3D collision shape, add a camera, add lighting, and add a ground. In other words, it shows how to create a basic 3D scene. Soon after watching that video, I was able to plant the tree in the ground, while adding nice lighting. Again, I was impressed with Godot. There's a lot of control here. By playing around with the settings, I was able to get rid of the banding effect on the grass. And then I was able to make the shadows softer. The lighting was also improved to be brighter. The idea is to create a colorful farm. It's nice to see that the mood of the game can be changed so easily with just simple settings. Continuing to work backwards from the three main challenges of this project, the next challenge is to spawn another tree. This was accomplished with the duplicate method. I'm simply taking the hedge that is already in the scene and then adding a copy of it to self, which is the main node. That's the node with the code. From there, I read the history at GitHub. It was requested to be able to easily access the most recently created child. That feature was added to Godot. So now I can use self to work with the current node and then use the getChild method with the value of -1. A very nice trick. That newly created node can be modified by rotating it or moving it. Using a 3D location, the X, Y, and Z values can be modified. Since this is just a learning experiment, I'm using random values. Playing the project shows the results. You can clearly see that 2 trees are in the scene, when previously it was only 1. There's only one goal left, the ability to spawn a tree exactly where you want it. That was discussed in the previous video. It probably can be done with ray casting with the mouse location. Ray casting is different than ray tracing. So that's newly acquired knowledge since the last video. The point is that I'm probably going to need the mouse location first. The Godot website has a nice tutorial to get the input coordinates. Basically, it's an event, very similar to the JavaScript tutorials on Photics TV. The challenge is thinking in GDScript. I'll play the project so you can see what I mean. The snippet of code prints the coordinates to the console whenever the mouse is moved or whenever the mouse button is clicked. The problem is that this is adding a lot of unnecessary data. Do you see how it prints double when the mouse is clicked and when the button is released? So, what's the equivalent of on mouse down in Godot? Well, the word pressed appeared several times in the using input document. So I just changed the code to use that. These are conditionals, so I just added another condition to see if event pressed worked. I also removed the unnecessary code. Only the mouse press data is needed. Loading the project once again, and it works. Very nice. For the last challenge, it was awful. I was struggling with this problem for 2 days. The raycasting seemed to be working, and the spawning seemed to be working, but something was wrong when I combined the two. The bushes weren't spawning past a certain point, and it wasn't aligning with the mouse. The confusion was so high I wasn't sure if it was a version 4.0 versus 3.5 issue. I even recreated much of the project in version 3.5 to see if that was the issue. No, that wasn't the problem. But there certainly is a difference between the two. If you see the error, too many arguments for intersecting ray call, expected at most 1 but received 2, apparently that's related to a difference in Godot versions. There's a good post about it on Reddit. But the work in version 3.5 was not a total waste. While rebuilding the project, I realized that I should just try moving the cube. Theoretically, it should move right to the mouse point. But it wasn't doing that. This isolated the problem. I was using Translate to move the object. By switching to simply setting the position, things were working normally. Also, a side note, apparently I was using Rotate incorrectly. I was getting an axis vector 3 must be normalized error. The Godot documentation is awesome. A lot of the common problems can be solved with the information. I solved the rotation problem, but eventually I just removed the rotation code. I'm not sure if I want to rotate the hedges randomly. For now, it's not necessary. The goal was to reach the main objectives, and that has been achieved. After updating the code, hedges can now be precisely added to the game. Since placement is to be grid-based, there's still more work to do. This is only the beginning, but it's a major change in the creation of the game. So that warrants a new video. If you like this series of videos, you can let me know by liking the video and leaving a friendly comment. Also, subscribe to Photics TV if you want to be alerted of future videos. Thanks for watching.